Today I'm going to show you how to make a stitched earphone tidy using some fabric from a fat quarter. The first thing I'm going to do is fold a small hem at either end of a piece of fabric. Now mine's measuring 10.5 by 8.5 centimetres, and I'm folding the short ends in first. So just a small 0.5 centimetre hem at either side. You'll want to press these seams using your iron, but I'm just pressing them down with my fingers just for speed. Then we're going to turn it over and fold the wrong sides together, like so. So again, you want to press this seam before we move on. So the first thing we're going to do is sew a narrow hem along the open edge of our piece of material. And we want to use quite a small stitch, a small straight stitch. So I'm going to bring my foot down and then bring my needle down into my fabric like so. And then we're going to stitch a straight line all the way along. And as you can see, there's our hem. And the next thing we're going to do is turn this the right side out. So the first thing we're going to do is just snip off any excess threads that we have, so we haven't got to worry about those later. And then we're going to turn it to the right side. This is really easy to do because each end is open. So we'll just turn it around like so, and just use your finger to push it through. And then we have the little tube that's going to form the basis of our headphone tidy. The next thing you're going to want to do is press this flat, and then we're going to go back to the sewing machine. So we now have our piece like so, and the next thing we want to do is stitch a line of top stitch all the way around the piece. Again, we want a straight stitch, and I'm going to use the smallest straight stitch on my machine. So we're going to pop it underneath the foot as before, and we want to leave a little border, but not too much. So we manoeuvre it until we see the needle is about where we want it, and then we're going to stitch all the way around. And when you get to the corner, just stop, and making sure your needle's still in the fabric, so we can just move it forward one stitch, is just raise your foot and rotate it by 90 degrees, making sure your seam looks nice and flat, and then lower your foot again, and you can continue to stitch. Okay, when we get to the end, we're going to raise our foot again and raise our needle and just snip off the excess. So here's our piece with the top stitching all the way around. The next thing we're going to do is sew a buttonhole at one end of our piece, and for that you'll need the buttonhole attachment that comes with your machine, and most machines come with one of these, plus a setting on your machine that will allow you to sew a buttonhole in 4 easy steps. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the existing foot and pop on the new one, just popping the thread through the foot like so, and then just lowering the foot into place like so. Now as you can see, there are guidelines on your new foot that enable you to work out where you want to start and begin. So this will be the start, and you'll decide how far along you want to go. So we're going to pop our little piece underneath and line up our hole where we want it to start. I'm going to say about there, and then I'm going to use the 4-step guide on my machine. So I'm going to start, see, with number 1. So I'm just going to choose my setting, and I'm going to sew a few stitches. I'm going to sew a few stitches just to start the end of the buttonhole. Just make sure my needle is on the left hand side for the second step. So I'm going to move to step 2 and then start sewing again. And I'm going to move to step 3. And step 4. So when we lift our foot, you can see the little buttonhole that we've created there. The next thing we need to do is just cut a slit in the centre there to enable our button to pass through. Okay, so I've trimmed away the excess threads that were here. I'm just going to use my knife, or you can use a really fine pair of scissors if you prefer, just to cut a little slot where your button's going to go. You want to be careful not to cut any stitches, obviously otherwise it will fall apart. So, and there's our completed buttonhole. So the last thing we need to do is attach a button at the other end of our piece. Now I find it easiest when sewing on a button to use a doubled over length of cotton, and I've got obviously the loop at one end and my 2 cut ends I've threaded through the needle, and this just lets us start off attaching the button really easily. So I'm going to stitch through the holes once, and then when we come around to the reverse we can just pop our needle through the loop to make that first secure stitch at the back there. Then we can just continue to secure the button until we're happy that it's all safely affixed. So once your button's securely affixed, all you need to do is wrap it around your headphones and just fasten the button to hold them securely in place.